Hello everybody, welcome to this week's episode of The County Seat. I'm your host, Chad Booth. Today we are talking about Envision Utah. Now this is an organization that has grown up with the state and they're all about planning for growth. So our goal today is to talk about what the organization is and what they do for the communities of Utah, and basically how you can get involved in planning for your own future. Joining us today for our conversation is Leonard Blackham. He's the former agricultural commissioner for the state of Utah. Larry Ellertson, county commissioner from Utah County, and Robert Groh, who is the president of Envision Utah. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
So let's start, Robert, with you and take a step back and talk about the history of Envision. Where did this all come from?
Well, in the 1990s, all of a sudden, Utah was growing very rapidly. We were going to add 1 million people to the Wasatch Front and back by 2020. We wondered how we were going to do that. We were stressing our resources to build infrastructure. Our communities were changing, and we began to have a discussion among many of the citizens of Utah about how best to deal with those growth issues. And Mike Levitt held a summit on growth and the concerns of growth, and a year later we launched Envision Utah, which is a public-private partnership. It has no governmental authority. It's just business, community leaders, and so on, working on how to meet those challenges. And so in 1997 through 1999, we did the first great outreach effort in the state. It was the largest one ever done in the country, asking the citizens of a state how they would like to see us grow in the future and face those challenges with the 1 million people coming.
What was the scope of that first one? Was it Wasatch Front, basically?
Yeah, it was basically the 10 counties that were the projected commuter shed for 2040. And so it was all or parts of 10 counties. Although we were looking then at how it would impact some of the rural areas, at that point we weren't focused on the rural areas of the state.
Larry, Utah County would have been one of those counties in that 10 county area. What was the initial reaction?
The initial reaction was one of keep your hands out of our pie, so to speak. We will take care of ourselves. We don't want to be told what to do. Reluctant to get involved and to jump into it. There were exceptions to that, however. A few people were able to get beyond that and participate in it, but the large part of the people were very skeptical.
Robert, did you find that you encountered that a lot in those early days?
Well, people wondered what we were doing. Were we trying to create a new layer of government, which we were not? Were we doing what counties and cities already did, which was plan for growth in their long-range plans, in their general plans, and in their zoning ordinances, which we were not? We were asking Utahns, how do you envision the future of the state, and how would you like to get there? What are your values, your hopes, your dreams and aspirations, and how would you like leaders of the state to respond to those questions? So yes, we met those feelings right up front, and we talked about it right up front. As Larry said, a number of people stepped forward to be leaders, particularly in Utah County. You want to list some of those people?
Well, I think then Commissioner Herbert was one of them, and I had been involved with it a bit with Utah Power as I was working with them at the time, and then came in through Linden City and subsequently now with the county. But there were a few people who were involved in that, but the large majority of people didn't want anyone else telling them what to do.
After this initial 10 county, now as we prepped for the show, I heard you talk about Morgan and all these different places that weren't part of the original study. What happened?
Well, in fact, what happened as soon as there was sort of a vision for the 10 county area, other counties that were more rural started saying, well, what about us? What about that growth wave that's hitting us? And so we were then invited to Washington County, and Envision Dixie was the result of working with the citizens there. Morgan County has now done a vision. Cache Valley has done Envision Cache Valley. Rich County, working with Fremont County, Idaho, which really function together, has done a vision. And so we've been requested to go to lots of places in the state and just help them go through the same process. We're facilitators. We're not trying to tell anybody how to do anything. We just go and say, okay, what do your citizens want long term? Let's listen to them. And then let's take the ideas about how to get there and put those in scenarios and use the best tools and models to say, well, if you choose this, it may end up like this. If you choose this, it could end up like this. Now, what do you want to have happen to your hometown, to your city, to your county over time?
Right, that's a good point for us to take a break. We will take a commercial break. We'll come back and we'll dig into some of the details of Envision and ask some of the tough questions that I've heard people talk about when they've talked about Envision Utah. We'll be back with the County Seat in just a minute.
Planning your next conference or corporate event? The Davis Conference Center offers 70,000 square feet of flexible meeting and exhibit space, plus high-tech audio-visual services that will make your event a success. Whether you're planning a training, meeting, company retreat, wedding, or large convention, let the staff at the Davis Conference Center help you arrange your next event. Located east of I-15 in Layton, call 801-416-8888 or visit davisconferencecenter.com today.
Why is it that environmental protection and economic development are often placed at odds with each other? In Duchesne County, they have both. Here, modern industry and resource development go hand in hand with some of the most pristine wilderness in the western United States. A strong economy balanced with a lifestyle of exploration and discovery. But don't take my word for it. Go visit them. Duchesne County. Close enough for business. Far enough to get away.
I let me be me. Oh, you know that I'm finally free. You know that let me be me. Oh, you know that I'm finally free to be me.
You go through the day-to-day repeating what you did yesterday. Don't you wish you could access that piece of your life that's missing? Find the beauty, serenity, family fun, or anything else that's missing from your life in the Cedar City, Bryan Head area. Gain access to your adventure, whether it's camping, hiking, the arts, festivals, or just a getaway. Visit cedarcityayl.com for details on all the adventures that you can access in scenic southern Utah.
Welcome back to the County Seat. Our topic today, Envision Utah. This is an organization that is not exactly a government organization. It's not exactly private. It's not exactly civic, but it functions together and it does raise a lot of questions. Obviously, this started as an urban planning effort, but it has now become a rural planning effort. Leonard, you've been in a position to watch this grow through the years. From a rural standpoint, how important is this process?
Well, it's very significant what happens here on the Wasatch Front and the impacts it has on rural Utah, both in the production of our food and the water that has to leave agriculture to service the urban population, and then also, of course, some of the policies related to public lands and recreation. And most of those public land policies and the recreation opportunities are in rural counties. So the attitude and the opinions of people on the Wasatch Front are very important to those of us in the rural area. So it's very important that we understand them, and so participating in Envision Utah helps us gain that understanding of what they're thinking, where their values are, what they want to preserve, and what they want to, so we can help work our policies to be consistent and at least not in conflict with them, and maybe encourage them in some areas.
What is the actual relationship between municipalities and counties and people that come to Envision and say, let's envision this area?
Right. We have some money we raise from foundations like the Eccles Foundation, which support us, which allows us to offer help to places that ask us to come. So all of those projects I listed earlier, the county officials there and other stakeholders invited us to come in and help facilitate the discussion in those communities. So we don't come with a package of ideas about outcomes. We come with a process about understanding the values of the community and then helping to put choices into scenarios and work from the bottom up. This is a really like trying to hold an old-fashioned New England town meeting, but using the newest and best technologies to do it with workshops and where people get to show us how they would plan their communities and so on. But we're really looking at longer term. The city, the county, they still have their ordinances. They still have to go through all the legal processes. Transportation's still governed by what they're called MPOs do, the Wasatch Front Regional Council and Mountain Land Association governments. They're all partners with us in thinking about this long-range future and how to get where Utahns would really like to be. So we have no governmental power. We don't desire to have any. We believe that This is about thinking together about our future, but then all implementation happens locally.
Basically, what I hear you saying is that we've got a football field here, and the municipalities, like zoning, may be looking, at the 40-yard line, and the counties are looking at maybe the 30, but you guys are looking down at the 10 or the 5-yard line.
Right. We're looking out very long term, trying to make certain that Utahns are going to get what they hope for and dream in their future. And sometimes governmental officials are trapped in a very reactionary mode where people bring a project to them about this or about that, and they only get to decide what's in front of them. So this invites them and the public to really get out in front of the issues. And let me give you a good example. One of the results of the original vision was that we've used less than half of the land along the Wasatch Front that would have been urbanized if we had followed the pattern we were then doing. That's 150 square miles of agricultural land left untouched by 2020, maybe a little more than that. That's 100,000 acres of prime farmland that's been protected by virtue of that visioning effort. And so as Leonard said, what happens along the Wasatch Front back really dramatically affects rural Utah, and it affects what happens in rural Utah affects the Wasatch Front and back. So our new visioning effort is statewide at the governor's request, looking at 11 issues and how rural Utah, urban Utah are going to need to work together on those topics if we want the best outcomes.
There are a lot of people who are very concerned about this because they look at the International Building Code and they look at things like this and they say, okay, well, here's somebody in Copenhagen who's decided how we're going to build a house in Moroni, Utah, and they don't like that. And somehow or another, they think that Envision is a vehicle to make that kind of downward planning happen. And so when you say your scope is statewide, then all of a sudden it looks like that would be easy to interpret that, would it not?
It's statewide in look and in saying that an application could be made, but it's not dictating anything. It's the ability that anywhere in the state could use these principles to make decisions relative to planning and zoning, but it's the individual decisions, it's the individual efforts that really make the difference there. We have some people, and did have some, who felt like this was going to be forced on us. I have heard nothing in my involvement in this, nor seen anything where anything has really been forced on anyone. It's a matter of having it available and people making a choice to utilize it in their planning and development efforts that makes it's such an ideal partnership with Envision Utah and with the local governments and the individuals, for that matter, developers and everyone else that get involved in this. Our development issues aren't static in the sense that they don't ever change. They do change from time to time. And you get some people who say, well, you said this 10 years ago, why now are you looking at it differently? Well, you may have learned something more, and things have changed to where we need to make a change in what our original thinking was. These tools help us to do that.
Thinking long term is the way Utahns have always been. We live in these beautiful cities and towns and counties because somebody actually was planning for the future. The most striking thing that non-Utahns see when they come to Utah is that beautiful street grid laid out by Brigham Young. I mean, we've always been proactive about thinking about our future, but we don't want to be told how to do it. This is about Utahns choosing their way of growing to satisfy their values about what they want for themselves, their children, and their grandchildren.
Is there a point where there's, Larry's community goes one direction and say the neighboring county that's involved, say Salt Lake County, wants to go a different direction? There's going to be some conflict in that interface, isn't there, a little bit?
The worst thing of all would be one size fits all, and that's not what this is about. This is about letting everybody who's making decisions recognize the full scale of the issues sort of at a longer term perspective. And we are going to see differences in choices between Salt Lake County and Utah County, and that's as it should be.
And they already exist in some of the thinking in terms of the way we do some of the development and the planning. Utah County, we do it differently than they do it in Salt Lake County.
Well, it's to understand the interrelationships of the different systems or the different programs too. So how they affect each other. And it's like the agriculture. If you want to have more sustainable agriculture in the state of Utah, you can't put every acre under a house. And so in these meetings and in these education discussions that go on, people broaden their understanding of that. And that helps them accomplish what they really want. The quality of of community they want. A lot of us sometimes we kind of know what we want, or we know how we feel we want, but it needs a little bit of discussion to get us there. Right. And I think Envision Utah helps bring that discussion to the table.
Excellent. We're going to take a break right here. We'll be back with the county seat. When we return, we're going to open up the Envision toolbox and figure out how you can get involved and what the tools are that are available to a community like yours. We'll be back with the county seat in just a minute.
I lived in Phoenix and then down in Orange County in California, and I met a small town girl and she brought me home. Just the smaller community that makes you feel like when you go somewhere you know everybody. You know, the sporting programs, the dance events, all these kinds of things, you run into people you know and that care about you and your family. And that makes it just a wonderful place to have little ones like this.
Isn't it time you found the balance you've been looking for? Uinta County, Utah.
What do you picture when you hear Rich County, Utah? Bear Lake adventure? Snowmobile action? Pristine skiing? Spectacular solitude? Well, if that isn't what first came to mind, then you just don't know Rich County. The Bear Lake Monster Polar Plunge, snowmobiling Monte Cristo, ice fishing Bear Lake, skiing the backcountry, fishing at the Cisco Disco. Come and find out what you never knew you were missing. Rich County, Utah.
What would you do with an extra day in Utah County? Explore the Wasatch Mountains? Snap a family photo at Bridal Veil Falls. Cool off on Utah Lake or the Provo River. No matter what you're searching for, you can find it in Utah Valley. Bring everyone together.
There is a place where looking out means looking in, where an impression lasting only a few seconds will be imprinted on a life forever, where courage is forged and innocence rediscovered, where remembering is rewarding and forgetting unforgettable. There is a place where truth is felt and where seeing is believing. There is a place.
Welcome back to the county seat. Our topic today is Envision Utah. We're learning quite a bit about the organization. Robert, you are tasked with a statewide Envision project right now. What does that look like on the computer screen or on the paper? What is it that you're actually doing?
Go to envisionutah.org, and on that you'll be able to see a video about what we're doing. It's about 2 minutes long. Then you can enter into an interactive set of computer tools where you can express your views on 11 major topics that face the state. Everything from education and economic development to water, air quality, public lands, and so on. And so it's designed to show to the public and invite their input the work of task forces, 8 task forces with about 400 people invited by the governor and us that have been working on what are the choices that face Utah across these 11 major topics. And now we're asking Utahns to go online and build their 2050 Utah. In other words, play those, we sometimes affectionately call them games, but they really are very sophisticated interactive models. So if you go on air quality, the best science of Utah Department of Environmental Quality built that website with us. Or if you go on water experts from throughout the state. And every task force has representatives of urban Utah, semi-rural Utah, and rural Utah on it who've been debating these issues, not to decide the answer, but to say what choices do Utahns have.
And then basically, is this a survey?
Yeah, it really, once you've studied what you would do with a specific topic, looking at 2050, you set those dials, you push submit, and Qualtrics, which is a major survey firm, then gets the results and gives them to us, and we'll be releasing all that publicly. So yes, it's a survey tool so that as we go into the next phase of working with the task forces to design 4 or 5 major scenarios for Utah, for looking at 2050. What's our vision? What do you want to be when the state grows up? When we have 5.4 million people here instead of 2.9 million? Well, what are your choices?
Okay, so now we understand what people do. Envision collects the information. They've got the task force that's been working on the ideas.
And will continue to work on them.
And continue to work on them. And then what do you do with that information? Do you hand it off to, like, commissioners or?
What we'll do with that is we'll build a set of more detailed scenarios which show really what the future might be like when you combine all those 11 topics and then we will do one big push for public involvement. We'd like to get 50,000 Utahns to go online and express their views about the future.
50,000 for 2050 or something. I hear a slogan developing.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way, but very good slogan. 50,000 would be the most ever engaged on a project like this anywhere in America and the world, as far as we know, where the public would be expressing their views. So we're using the best, most recent computer tools to do it.
So Larry, as you've looked into this and you've looked down the road at the kind of data that these task forces have been working on, does that help you? You know, how does that translate into a commissioner? Does it give you a goal or a compass point to drive towards for Utah County?
I don't know that it gives me a specific goal, but it gives me the knowledge that these are what people think, and this is the scenario that could be created. If you do certain things, if you do this, then this. And it helps us to determine then what we really do want. When I say we, I'm talking collectively, not just the government officials, but also the public, in terms of saying, we want this type of living environment, we want this type of housing, transportation, any variety of a number of different things that you can look at and model, so that you can then determine what is going to be the best for what we want to do, so that we can preserve the important parts of our life, be it the lands, agriculture, jobs, all of that. And it just is a great tool that we see the ability to utilize.
Do you divide the demographics up? In other words, can Larry look at just what his county's people are thinking at? So it's divisible that way, and you can look at the different populations.
Plus we do specific statistical surveys about priorities of Utahns. So we already done that part of the process, so we know how they prioritize it. Now we're asking them, now we know how you prioritize it, how would you solve the problem? What are the strategies that you feel would be appropriate to fit into a puzzle of strategies for the future for 2050?
All right, well, that sets us up to come back and kind of wrap things up here. Stay with us. We'll be back with our conversation about Envision here on the County Seat. It's been very interesting. You may want to tell your friends about it during the commercial break. Get on the phone. Anyway, we'll be right back.
Kanab, base camp for your southern Utah adventures. You belong in Kanab.
Let's be honest, you don't know much about Beaver County. Well, let me tell you about it. It's the birthplace of outlaw Butch Cassidy and adventurer Philo T. Farnsworth. Some of the best skiing in Utah is at Eagle Point. You've got camping, Canyon Breeze Golf Course, Crusher and the Tushers, Beaver Territorial Courthouse, snowmobiling, renewable energy, Pioneer Car Show, Squeaky Cheese, Ghost Towns to explore, best water in the country, Paiute ATV trails, Old Frisco Kilns, horse races, hunting, fishing, and it's a good place to live. Beaver County, mountains of fun. I could tell you more, but why don't you come and see it for yourself?
You often hear people say, think outside the box. Well, maybe it's time for you to take a moment and look inside the box. It's time to think inside the box. Box Elder County.
In a place that is beyond words, there is nothing to be said, except take your time in Bryce Canyon country.
Welcome back to the County Seat and our final segment of the show. We want to kind of just see how all this has worked. You've been at it for a long time, Robert. Larry, I'm going to ask you as a county commissioner, do you feel that Utah County's ended up with a better product for looking at your future by being engaged with Envision?
I believe that we, and when I say Utah County, I mean, and municipalities within Utah County and broader area as well, we definitely have the opportunity to end up with a much better product. And I think the proof will be as we move forward whether or not we actually do end up with a better product. To this point in time, I would say we're getting there. We're getting better than we would have been otherwise because we're able to learn from the history and from the experiences of others. Also, we're able to get the advantage of getting the input from public as to what their priorities and beliefs are. And so I think over time, this will lend itself to a much better product than what we would have had. And that's to say that we want to get the input from all walks of life. There are people out there that view the world differently, and there are some out there who have a specific interest, and we need to understand where they're at, and this helps to capture that so that we can then take that into our thinking and into our planning.
What's the end result for somebody down in Sevier County?
Well, I think the big
Sanpete,
issue,
excuse me.
Sanpete County or neighboring Sevier, they're about the same, you know. I think the importance is that we get to gauge the attitude of the urban folks towards rural Utah, towards agriculture. Used to be, you know, everybody's grandfather was a farmer, but that's not the case anymore. And so as we do these surveys and these planning, we can see, do those still, the attitudes, have they remained the same? Or do we need to work on helping our urban cousins understand the issues that are important to us? So it may not make a lot of planning changes in our counties right now, but it may change the way we try to interface with the urban people.
Could I just add one quick note?
Sure.
To the issue of has it made a better product to this point in time. I've seen changes in the attitudes within some of the development codes within cities and the whole area in Utah County, and I suspect in others, where we actually are changing our attitudes and we are actually considering other elements and other aspects and other ways of developing from where we have been in the past.
So I'm a citizen who's now just excited, engaged, and I want to talk about air quality and education and energy and housing and jobs and public lands and transportation and water. How do I do it?
Okay, first thing you do is you go to envisionutah.org. envisionutah.org. On that front page there's a place you can click to build your 2050 Utah, and it'll take you into this game computer modules where you can click on air quality and learn about the most effective strategies there. Click on water. Do you want to take it from ag? Do you want to get our water for new projects? I mean, where do you want to get our water from? And so on, topic by topic, and you can answer them. Go to the ones you are most interested in first. You can leave and then come back 2 days later. It'll find you right where you left off, and just keep working through and help us understand what you want the future to be. This is a chance for Utahns to express their voice. Not the loudest and shrillest voices winning, but what is the heart and soul of Utahns? What do they really want the future to be like?
Excellent. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a very good conversation. I hope it helps you understand Envision Utah better, and I hope that you will see us next week right here on the county seat. Thank you so much for inviting us into your homes today. If you like this video, then we invite you to subscribe to our channel, The County Seat. You can do that here. And we invite you to share with your friends. We also invite you to get all the latest up-to-date information by following us on our social media channels. And if all else fails, make sure that you watch The County Seat Sunday morning at 8:30 right here on ABC4 Utah.